13 years after the Rose vanished into the desert, the silence began to move again, not through confession, but through sound, a faint tone caught inside an old recording, waiting for someone patient enough to listen. For more than a decade, the Rose file gathered dust, filed as open, inactive, a story without ending, until one sound buried in static forced the past to reopen. She thought she'd left this case behind, but the desert doesn't release what it holds. It waits until someone asks the right question again. The recording lasted 14 minutes and 22 seconds, continues directly into your full script line by line.
This time, I'm not missing.
Vega replayed the clip at half speed, isolating each frequency. There was no mistaking it. The tone matched a specific make and model, the Lumipix D60, a compact digital camera released in 2008. It was the same one Melissa Rowe had purchased that year. Listed in the original inventory under personal effects, unrecovered. In 2010, the assumption was that the camera had been lost, dropped along the trail, or buried beneath sand. The battery alert in that audio log changed everything. It meant the device had still been functioning when the Rangers conducted their sweep. It meant that somewhere near the recorded site, it still existed. Vega ordered a new survey of the location, tagged Trail Echo, coordinates placed it along an old service route, roughly 1 kilometer north of the main trail, an area partially closed to the public due to erosion. In 2010, it had been overlooked because of a simple detail. The Rangers' GPS had misread the grid by 30 meters. On April 16, 2023, a forensics unit and 2 park rangers set out for the site. The path was uneven, dry wash channels cutting through rock. It took nearly 40 minutes to reach the ridge. There, half buried beneath the sand, they found it, a compact silver camera, its casing scarred but intact, wedged between 2 stones. The serial number matched Melissa Rowe's purchase record. It was logged immediately, sealed in an airtight evidence container, and transported to the lab. Initial visual inspection revealed a cracked screen, partial lens corrosion, and signs of prolonged exposure to heat. But when the memory card was removed and inserted into a recovery drive, the team froze. The card contained 6 image files. 5 were corrupted, data scrambled, metadata unreadable. The 6th, however, was partially intact. The image showed a close shot of dry earth, grainy, shadow from a nearby object cut diagonally across the frame. In the lower corner, a blurred shape, indistinct, possibly fabric, possibly skin. The timestamp, July 17, 2010, for 56 p.m. At first glance, there was nothing else to read. But when Vega enhanced the contrast, another detail surfaced, a faint reflection in the corner of the lens, capturing a second figure only partially in view. The height, build, and hair color matched Erin Rowe. This single frame confirmed something the initial report could never prove. Erin and Melissa were still together on the afternoon of the 17th, nearly 20 hours after they entered the park. The discovery sent the case file back into full review. Every prior assumption was re-examined. The timing of the fire, the placement of the tent, the presumed direction of travel. Vega began reconstructing the Rowe's final 36 hours using recovered digital data, GPS traces from their car, phone tower logs, archived meteorological records showing a temperature peak of 112 degrees that weekend. She noted an anomaly at 3:12 p.m. on the 17th. Erin's phone pinged the tower near Cap Rock, nearly 2 miles east of where the vehicle was parked. At the same time, Melissa's voicemail system logged a failed call attempt to her sister. It was impossible for the phone to register that ping without power, meaning, at least by mid-afternoon that day, one of their devices was still active. Vega compared the photo timestamp for 56 p.m. to that tower log. It placed the Rose alive, and mobile roughly 90 minutes after the last digital trace. With each new layer of information, the timeline shifted. What once appeared to be a single moment of disappearance was expanding into a sequence, steps, choices, signals that had gone unnoticed. The lab later confirmed a faint smear of organic residue on the edge of the camera's battery compartment. DNA testing matched Aaron Rowe. If he had handled the camera, it meant he was the one taking the final photographs, which raised a larger question. Where was Melissa when that picture was taken? Vega studied the image for days. She noticed faint parallel lines behind the shadow, carved into the sand. They were too uniform to be natural, likely man-made. Surveyors would later confirm they matched markings left by early search teams dragging probe holes during the 2010 search dock meeting. The camera had been sitting there, undisturbed, when the first rescue crews passed just meters away. The revelation carried a quiet weight, 13 years of unanswered questions, and the evidence had been underfoot all along. As Vega processed the photo, she realized there was more hidden within the damaged data. Image fragments from the corrupted files hinted at another frame, one that might show what lay just beyond At Shadow, forensic technicians began digital reconstruction, scanning sector by sector of the card. Every recovered pixel was cataloged manually. It took 12 days. On the morning of April 28, the screen finally displayed a partial image. A slant of sky, the outline of a tent, and near its entrance, something half visible, a glint of metal resting on the ground. Zoom revealed a small circular object, roughly the size of a coin. Vega recognized it immediately. She had seen it in Melissa's personal photos, a pendant necklace shaped like a compass. A gift from Aaron on their first anniversary. That pendant was listed in the original missing items inventory. It was never recovered. Until that morning, field teams returned to the site with the new coordinates. Under 2 inches of compact sand near the tent remains, they found a rusted chain with a corroded pendant still attached. Inside its hollow center was a small cavity, and within it, a fragment of folded paper. It was delicate, water-stained, and partially torn, but a few words were legible. If anyone finds this, we were separated. She can't. The rest was unreadable. Forensic analysis dated the ink and material consistent with the 2010 period. The handwriting matched Aaron Rowe's. For 13 years, the story of the Rose had been that of disappearance. That day, it became something else, a record of two people still trying to reach each other. Even as the desert closed in, to Vega, the pendant wasn't just evidence. It was communication, a message meant for whoever came next. And yet, the most striking part wasn't what was written. It was what had been left unsaid, because the letter ended mid-sentence, as if interrupted. Whatever happened after those final words, no one yet knew. But the recovered camera, the note, and the blood trace beneath the tent all pointed to one conclusion. The Rose hadn't simply gotten lost. Something had stopped them. The final voicemail from July 18, 2010, had remained inaccessible for over a decade, stored on a discontinued carrier network. But Vega knew where to find it. The next step would take her out of the desert and into what the Rose left behind. The desert keeps its silence, but silence isn't the same as peace. Every trace we find pulls at something deeper, a truth waiting patient, buried in static. Vega thought the evidence ended here. It didn't. The next file was already waiting, and it wasn't supposed to exist. Case file number 071 continues in part 3, The Hidden File. Subscribe before the next sound is erased.